And our first guest joins us via satellite from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Mr. William Robinson. He is the CEO of CAVU Resources Incorporated. CAVR is their stock symbol. William, good to talk to you again.
Thank you very much, Don. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, I appreciate you being here. You're actually one of the very first guests that we had on this program 15 years ago. Of course, we're talking about CAVU Resources now. You describe yourself as a company formed with the goal of becoming a recognized regional player in the independent oil and gas industry. You want to be growing the company's reserves. Can you give us a general overview of the company, please?
Sure. Well, CAVU was formed approximately 3 years ago, and we wanted to first have a unique name. My wife came up with it, and CAVU stands for Ceiling and Visibility Unlimited. And basically what that means is during World War II, when a naval pilot was getting ready to go out and launch from an aircraft carrier, and they'd look up at the sky, if they saw it was a clear sky, they knew, number one, they'd be able to see their target sooner, so they would have an advantage. They'd be able to overcome obstacles and objections and other issues they'd have to basically take out the enemy, and three, they'd have a greater chance of success. And since we were going into a business that has a lot of obstacles and unforeseen things, we wanted to be sure that we could overcome those. But CAVU was formed with basically two distinct business units. The first one was in the drilling, what I would call roustabout or pre-construction stage of doing wells or workovers, and then operating those wells. And the second business was gas pipelines, and then leases, and going in and reworking the existing wells on the leases and drilling new wells when the opportunity arose. So we basically acquired two different companies. The first one was Envirotech Fuel Systems. It had about 85 miles of natural gas pipeline in northeast Oklahoma, and also had approximately 3,000 acres of leases and 90-plus wells. The second acquisition was Filequip Resources. It was an operating company with the license to operate, drill, and put wells in place in Oklahoma. And we acquired a 200-acre-plus lease that had 9 existing wells on it that in the previous life had been owned by Marathon Oil and was a water flood. And so what our goal was is to go into these existing wells that had become, economically unfeasible for the larger companies, and go in and rework those through mechanical, chemical stimulation and new technology, and bring both gas, natural gas, and oil back into production. So that's basically the Reader's Digest version of CAVU.
Well, we've recently seen obviously higher oil prices lately, and the company has forecast as much as $3.1 million in revenues for the first 2 quarters of this year. Are those numbers still on track?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that when we get our final tallies done for this month, we're going to exceed those numbers. We're going to meet and absolutely positively probably exceed those numbers.
Now, the company recently announced that you'd sold your Envirotech subsidiary. What can you tell us about the deal?
Well, Envirotech was a natural gas transportation system. We had about 85 miles of gas line that ran through northeast Oklahoma. We had existing wells that we owned, and then we also did what's called third-party transfer or transportation, where we would take gas from other producers, transport it down our line. We would get an override on top of that, and then we have a sales point or a tap into the main distribution lines that feed into ONEOK, which is one of the largest gas suppliers and buyers here in Oklahoma. So the problem with that was at the time we acquired it, gas prices were very low, so we got a very good buy on the assets. However, our plan was to go in and continue to rework the wells, bring on other third-party suppliers, and basically create a mini utility out of it. The problem is gas prices, because of new technology, there's been huge discoveries, and so the amount of gas that's out there available is, there's a large inventory, so pricing on gas has not risen much. And so we're right now, we're with prior to the sale, at a break-even point with the transportation and the production of the gas. And we felt that with gas prices staying stable and probably not going to rise much over the next 2 to 4 years, and oil prices not only at getting close to an all-time high, but forecasted to go higher, that we should refocus our efforts on the oil side of the business and diverse ourselves of the gas side. So we put together got with the buyer, put together a sale, and just excuse me, just recently closed actually on the first for $2.5 million. They bought the stock of Envirotech, so they now own Envirotech. And out of that, we got a huge amount of debt lifted from our books and operating capital that will allow us to not only expand the existing oil leases that we've got, but to go out and make new acquisitions as well.
Again, the company is CAVU Resources, CAVR is the stock symbol. Now, William, the company also hinted it was going to spin off another subsidiary, CAVU Energy Services, LLC. It would appear that you're setting up to focus in a singular direction.
That is true. What we're trying to do is focus on where the high return is right now. And right now it's in the oil business. So our goal and our initial goal always is to go find undervalued oil leases that had previously produced. So we would have all the geological work already done and paid for by somebody else. We'd have the history of the production on the wells, the zones they're in, and we'd be able to go in, replace existing equipment, and enhance it either through chemical or manual stimulation to increase the flow and the production of the wells. And so what we've done is we've recently received a $10 million funding commitment from Kodiak Capital. And in that, we are spinning off the oil operating side of the business, which includes the recently permitted 50,000 barrel a day disposal well down in Garvin County. And the reason for the disposal well is that when you produce oil, in some areas you also produce a lot of salt water. And if you don't have a way to dispose of that salt water, then in essence you can't produce the oil. So what we found is that rather than pay someone to haul the water, pay someone to dispose of it, that it made more sense for us to go and get permitted our own well in a commercial aspect, that we could not only dispose of all the water that we produced from our wells, but also take in third-party production and charge people fees on top of having it delivered or being able to truck it. We also recently, through CAVU Energy Services, got a trucking authority, so we can now haul the waste, which is considered a type of a hazardous waste. And then we are at our facility down in Pauls Valley. We're in the process of constructing a new commercial receiving site, building a regional office down there, and putting in what's called a reclamation or a skimming operation, which means, and it's not anything from the money skimming side, but basically what it means is that as the salt water is brought to the facility, oil naturally rises to the top of water. So as this salt water goes into the reclamation tanks, the oil rises to the top, and through a series of filters and settling tanks, then you can skim the oil off the top and actually create, in many cases, as much oil as you would get from a producing well. And we believe that at a 50,000 barrel a day capacity, that we can produce as much as up to 1,000 barrels a day of oil in the reclamation side of the process there, which is the same as if we'd gone out and drilled a 1,000 barrel a day well.
Well, now, William, with $100 per barrel oil prices and tremendous unrest in the Middle East, this must be just about the best time to be a domestic energy company.
I believe it couldn't be better. I mean, we were lucky enough to get in initially when everybody thought we were crazy. Oil prices had dropped down in the 30s. People were going broke. People were giving up leases for pennies on the dollar. And we were able to put together, a nice asset base, at a low initial cash outlay. We were also able to get some conventional and some institutional funding, which we've recently paid off a large portion of that in the transaction that we did in the Envirotech sale. And we had a long-term equipment lease that we settled and ended up getting a gain of about $1.2 million, $1.3 million on the transaction. We were able to actually get them to, based on a short-term settlement, discount what we were obligated for and capture that, which ultimately probably become income and drop to our bottom line.
Again, CAVU Resources, the stock symbol CAVR. William, why is this a good time right now for folks to take a closer look at your company?
Well, I think several reasons. One is that of recent, we've started getting a lot of what I would consider eyeballs on the stock. Over the past 3 months, we've had, a very active stock. We were in the sub-pennies. We've risen up in the 3 to 5 cent range, and we've maintained that base now for over 3 months. We haven't had these huge spikes and dips like you see so many times in these small over-the-counter stocks. And we have real assets. We have real income. We have product that you can see coming out of the ground. We have equipment that you can go out and touch. So it's not like we have a patent or we have some technology or some agreement to sell somebody else's product and we hope that it's going to work. We own the wells, we own the equipment. We have recently paid our debt down to where once we get paid off on the final balances due to us on the Envirotech sale, we'll be a debt-free company. We'll have cash in the bank to go make acquisitions. And with this spinoff, we now have a $10 million commitment, and the shareholders are going to receive a dividend. And the beauty of the way we structured this, it's really a non-dilutive transaction. When we spin off Envirotech Energy, when we spin off CAVU Energy Services, we're going to dividend out on a pro-rata basis to all the shareholders. So once we go and register that on the American Stock Exchange, which is what our plan, then the shareholders in this dividend spin out will all receive stock in a new recapitalized company with a $10 million funding commitment and assets that are generating revenues that's focused primarily in the oil and the oil recovery business.
Once again, CAVU Resources, CAVR. William, we're initiating coverage of the company this week and will be watching you very closely over the next several months. Looking forward to more updates from you during that period of time. Thanks so much for bringing us this story.
We look forward to giving you more updates in the near future.
Thanks so much, William.
Thank you very much, and you have a great day.